Hi, I'm Rob Eames, a certified trainer in nonviolent communication, and I'm here to share a little bit about needs consciousness. I recently wrote an article about needs consciousness through what I called mindfulness of strategies. And there are many ways to connect to universal human needs, and I'll talk more about what they are in a moment. And this is one to practice together. I'm going to offer a specific way, one of the ways, of using mindfulness of strategies to connect to what needs are up for me right now, what needs are alive in you. So we're going to do a practice of needs consciousness, and universal human needs are what makes life wonderful. So connecting to those needs and awareness of them and being with them and responding to them and acknowledging them is such an important skill that if this speaks to you, if this is something that you want to ground more into, it's part of what opens up an enriching life and all kinds of other skills about how to navigate through compassionate communication, nonviolent communication. It's at the needs consciousness is at the core of it, seeing the world through needs and connecting to my needs and being receptive and open to the needs of others and grounding in that contributing to those needs is what feels good and what's enlivening and what makes life wonderful and relationships wonderful. You might consider the needfulness practice groups that I offer, which focus specifically on the skill of needs consciousness and doing that together in a supported way and in a community of people who are practicing it together. There are many ways to connect to needs, and the Needfulness practice groups can explore more of them in addition to the one we're going to do today, which is mindfulness of strategy. Universal human needs are what makes life wonderful. They're what makes life enriching and relationships enriching, and they're the ingredients of uh, feeling good and an amazing life. And so it makes sense to give them some importance and some focus. And what you need in terms of materials in this practice that we're going to do together in this short video is one, a pen and a paper. And the second thing is a list of universal human needs. So a needs wheel or needs list. And so there's one linked in the description. So if that one is a good starting point, then open that one. Or if you have one that there are many of them. So if you have another one that speaks to you, and I invite you to search and browse for those and see which one resonates with you. A needs list can be a very important support, both starting out and ongoing in terms of connecting to needs, right? Because it gives a sort of a pantheon of needs to try on and some reminders about needs. And so I invite you to pause this video and to have those materials available to you and then start it again once you're ready. Okay, so we'll be talking about needs consciousness together and doing an activity, a practice that's based on mindfulness of strategies as one way to connect to needs. And before we go any further, why do this? I mentioned before that universal human needs, we all have them, and different ones are alive at different times for each of us. And so connecting to those things can be really clarifying, self-connection about what's most important to me right now. What am I longing for? So that clarity can open things up in terms of how can I get more of that, or what are the things that are most important to me? A flexibility and an agency about, oh, if that's most important to me, there might be many ways. There might be also opportunities for support in getting them met. So it's really, really important to be aware of what needs are alive in me, and also to be open to the needs of others. That there might be different. It's oftentimes, most often, that there are different needs alive for me and other people. Oftentimes, there's common ones, right? Like, most often in most interactions, we want to be heard, we want to be understood, we want support and care and collaboration, right? Those can be the needs under the needs, oftentimes, if that makes sense to you. And so it's needs consciousness, being aware and being open and receptive to needs, and seeing life and interactions and relationships through the lens of needs. But that's the juice of life, is a fundamental transformation. That's why I focus here. And but what about other things, Rob? Right? You're probably saying, well, what about conflict, and what about specific ways of making decisions together and collaborating? All those things are really important, and all of them, I'd propose, are related to needs, right? So a deepening and a foundation skill of needs consciousness empowers me and each of us to be more prepared for those are important, to learn and deepen those skills too. But needs consciousness and needs consciousness is at the root of those things. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today is universal human needs. And before we do anything else, I invite you to pause, right? So if you have any skepticism, healthy skepticism, why focus here? Just pause for a second and you have your universal human needs list. Just review it for a moment. So pause the video and I'll check in with you for a moment. Just review it and just see what needs call out for you, as you review the needs. Which ones kind of resonate with you? So pause and I'll see you in just a moment. So welcome back. So what was that like to browse the universal human needs list? For many of us, a couple of things pop out, jump out. Oh, this one's alive for me. A need for to be heard, a need for space, a need for stimulation and growth, whatever it is, right? Um, and how about that? That there's some natural way of connecting to those needs with support of the universal human needs list. And maybe it gives you a sense of what does it feel like to be connected to those needs viscerally, somatically, in your body. It can feel more grounding. It can feel more energizing. It can feel a relaxation, a confidence, a calm. The knowing of what's most important to me right now. And also maybe some, creativity and flexibility around, there might be many ways to do that. No, not always, right? That some of them, depending on what needs are alive for me, they could be things that are very important to me. They're tender needs, things that are stimulating, right? And for those, it might bring up some hard feelings. I'm not quite sure how to get those met yet. And at the same time, it can be empowering to revisit that, although it may be distressing too, and to soothe myself. That I'm reminding myself that those things are important to me. And maybe even in those ones where I'm not sure how I'm going to get those, how I'm going to contribute to those yet, or who I'm going to invite to support that with me yet, that I'm still focused on those. They're still present for me and I'm keeping them in mind, right? So that can have a calming and soothing effect of reminding myself that I'm aware that those things are important, right? So all those things and more might be in the mix. So this is the heart of needs consciousness, an ongoing practice of noticing what needs are alive in me and other people, noticing, naming them, validating them, and responding to them. So that's what we'll walk through in this activity together, specifically focused on mindfulness of strategies. So what are strategies? We're going to move on into the practice now. So introducing the practice of mindfulness of strategies. Strategies are potential ways to meet needs. So when we think about options, when we think about considering to do something, should I invite this person into a conversation or not? Should I make this video today? And what plans to make the video and what am I longing for in it, or what I want to do in it, or things that I act on, right? So when I say something to someone else, when I take the trash out, when I wipe off the counter, when I write an article, right? There are attempts to meet needs, and the word attempt is a critical part there, right? So we don't always know if a particular strategy, an action, or planning to do something is going to meet those needs. It's our attempt, it's our intention to meet those needs. So it's not about whether or not they actually do, oftentimes, in this practice. And the other thing is, it's not about being consciously aware at the time, right? So we often do things without checking in with those needs. And so needs consciousness actually is inviting more awareness and intention in making those choices. But where you might be right now is, some more often doing things without connection to those needs. And so it's not about necessarily when thinking about strategies as attempts to meet needs that you were consciously aware of what those needs were at the time. Sometimes there are go-to strategies that are intended to serve needs, or maybe that's at the root of them. But one, they don't meet those needs, and secondly, I'm not consciously kind of considering other options as well, right? So those are some important parts about strategies and what they are. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a practice of connecting to one of those strategies. You're going to do that. And then going through the process of connecting to the needs that are associated with them. Okay. I'm going to drop into the practice right now. It's got 3 steps to it. And so I'll walk you through those 3 steps. Again, you'll have your pen and your pad in front of you, and also Universal Humans Needs list either up on the screen or printed out in front of you. So the place to start is just to do a little bit of a recollection. Maybe earlier today, And I'm going to pretend like it's this evening, and I'm going to reflect on making this video, right? A strategy. Select a strategy that you actually considered or that you acted upon earlier in the day. Okay? Could be anything. I picked up the phone to call my friend. It could be I picked up my phone to purchase something. It could be that I read the news. It could be that I went for a walk, right? Any strategy, anything that you considered doing, I considered going for a walk. Anything that you considered doing, I reflected on a conversation I had yesterday, right? That's another strategy. Choosing to reflect on or the activity reflecting on something that happened. So thinking, doing, those are all parts of a strategy. Things that you do to meet universal human needs. There are attempts to meet universal human needs. So think of one and write a concise description down on the pad of paper. So what that concise description would be, for example, later this evening, if I were doing this activity, I could say, earlier today, I worked on a video about needs consciousness. That level of concise description. Okay, so I invite you to pause the video and to restart it when you're ready, when you have a strategy that you've selected. So welcome back. Step 2, we're going to build on that recollection of the strategy to get really curious about what needs were alive. So at this point, you've got your concise description of the strategy that you recall doing or considering, and to bring out your universal human needs list and just sort of browse it and see what needs might have been alive for you at that time, right? And again, I'm going to offer some prompts here. What what might have been alive for me at that time? What needs were up for me? What was most important to me then? What was I hoping that this strategy might mean? And again, not that I was consciously aware, just more so in reflecting on it now and considering that strategy now, what do I think was there in the background or there in the foreground, there that was underneath and related to why this strategy seemed like something to do or was compelling to do or was what I chose, right? So again, those things could be, what needs were alive for me at the time? What was most important to me then? What did I hope this strategy might contribute to in my life? Okay. So I invite you to pause and reflect on those sort of prompts in browsing the needs wheel and just seeing what comes up for you. And oftentimes it's multiple needs, right? So it can be helpful to brainstorm and just jot down a variety of them and then look at that brainstorm list and to select 2, 3, 4 of them from the list and put that in a right-hand column as what's a good enough for now kind of understanding what some of the needs that were up for you at that time. Okay? So I invite you to pause and to do that. Maybe you want to rewind a little bit and listen to those instructions again if it was too fast. And then when you're ready, you can restart the video and we'll go on to step 3. So welcome back. So now we're going to go to step 3, where it gives you an opportunity. So we've noticed the needs in step 2. So, through that strategy, noticing the needs, you've named them on the piece of paper. And now we're going to name them out loud and to see what happens. And we're going to go through it and validate and respond to them as the next steps of needs consciousness, right? So when you look at the concise summary of the strategy on your paper and the right-hand list of the list of needs that were alive that the strategy may have been an attempt to contribute to, it's an opportunity to say it out loud or to say it silently to yourself in the step 3, which is naming the needs, validating them, and an opportunity to respond, inviting an opportunity to respond. So what that might sound like is that earlier today when I worked in this video about needs consciousness, I am noticing and connecting to needs for contribution and purpose. And so would I be willing to acknowledge that meaning and purpose were important to me at the time? So notice that there's 2 parts to it. One is naming the strategy, naming the needs, and actually the third part is validating the needs, right? And so that's part of the response and also the validation in this case. Now, oftentimes the response would also go into how can I invite more of that into my life? What are other opportunities to consider those needs? Also, some of the responding would be, what are other strategies? And does that strategy seem like a way that would meet those needs, right? But for now, we're going to keep it simple, which is naming the strategy, naming the needs, and then validating an initial response of validating the needs, right? So that's needs consciousness. Again, what it sound like, say it one more time. Earlier today, when I worked on the video about needs consciousness, I connected to, in reflecting on that, I connect to needs for meaning and contribution. Or sorry, purpose and contribution, meaning, purpose, and contribution. And would I be willing to acknowledge that those needs were important to me at the time? Yeah. And again, naming that there could be more to it. Obviously, there is more to it from there. That's a starting point of needs consciousness. Notice when you do that. So I'll invite you to pause the video and do that for yourself, either silently or out loud. And when you're ready, you can restart the video. So welcome back. So you took that strategy that you recalled, you discerned the needs that were related to it, it might have been an attempt to meet those needs. And then you offered yourself the noticing, the naming, and the validation and responding to the needs consciousness. And so notice how that feels right now. Notice what do you notice shifting in terms of doing that for yourself and going through these steps? And I would recommend and offer that, this is a recorded resource, right? You can return to this again and again. The content of your life will change. There will always be strategies that either, you thought about or considered or that you actually did. And so that's rich material for what needs are alive for me and a gateway to connect to those needs. Through repetition and practice, it'll get to be that, oftentimes this needs consciousness becomes something that you have greater access to in moment to moment. It's not retrospective, not only retrospectively, but also what needs are alive for me right now in considering this strategy, in the choosing, in the considering, in the reflecting on, in the mindfulness awareness of strategies. That not good or bad in terms of strategies, just which strategies are available and are they meeting the needs? Are they likely to meet those needs, right? And a flexibility about what those strategies are. Mindfulness of strategies, gateways to connecting to needs, using that ground of what needs are alive for me to have more clarity, flexibility, and agency about ways to respond to those needs, right? Letting go necessarily of any kind of fixing on that one particular strategy with an openness that there are innumerable ways and innumerable support options to get those needs met, which can, be a really grounding and opportunity for inviting more calm and more confidence and more creativity into how to respond to those needs. So you just practice needs consciousness with me. So thank you for doing that. Needs consciousness is a pivotal skill. I offer needfulness practice groups that are focused on specifically the skill, various ways of connecting to needs. So that's another option if you're looking for ways of doing that in support of community, with the support of a coach, of a facilitator, then you might want to check out on my website about the needfulness practice groups. And I invite you to try this again by rewatching this video on different days at different times and just seeing what you notice as you go through this, what you notice in that moment and what you notice over time. So thank you again for practicing with me. And I look forward to seeing you in one of the Needfulness practice groups if that speaks to you too. Thank you.